Hey there guys, it's Corinna from Shared Legacy Farms and mydigitalfarmer.com. Hope you guys are doing well. So it's April 1st, and if you're like me and you're a CSA farmer, your CSA is starting in a few short months and maybe even a few short weeks. And so today we're going to talk about what do you do about those people from last season, those members who haven't renewed yet. Does anybody have people who haven't renewed in their CSA yet? If you're like any other CSA farmer, you probably have quite a few. And every year we wonder, how do we handle those customers? How do we reach out to them? Should we reach out to them? How often? What should we say? And can we be a little pushy, or should we take it easy and just back off? So that's what I want to talk about today. How do you coach those conversions, and how do you manage those relationships when it may feel a little bit awkward? So this was inspired by a post that came inside of our Facebook group, Katie Bishop. Thank you, Katie. This is what she wrote. I'm looking for some ideas. I have 10 members I picked out who didn't sign up this year, who have been with us for over 2 years. And I'm challenging myself to get 50% of them back. I don't want to send any I want you back emails or call them. I've emailed all the non-returns before with a sales pitch. I don't want to give these guys a sales pitch, but I do want to connect and get them thinking of us again. So then she says, I made a super cute meal planning graphic. I thought I could send that as a gift for my loyal farm friends. Any other ideas, or should I not chase them at all? Okay, I feel like this is a great post because it sort of epitomizes all the different questions swirling around in our heads, because we kind of know that we should be reaching out to them and trying to touch base with them again, especially if they've been with us for a few years and we're kind of curious to find out what's going on, but we don't want to be pushing, we don't want to be salesy, and we've tried emailing and we feel like maybe we should call, but we don't want to. And I mean, all of this stuff is running around in our heads, right? So maybe some of you are even looking at your non-renewed list right now, or people who just haven't signed up again. And you're even seeing some names like Katie did of people who've been with you for a while, maybe more than 2 years. And you're kind of surprised that they haven't signed up again. And you feel like maybe those people should be treated a little bit differently. So today's video, we're talking all about this. We're going to walk around this conversation and this question from many different angles. And I hope that it's going to give you some things to think about and give you some specific tools that you can try. And not all of them are going to feel right for you or feel comfortable for you. And that's okay. I just want you to take this all in and pick and choose what's resonating with you. Okay. Now, I did take some ideas from some of the comments of that post, because there were a lot of farmers who weighed in on this, who have tried different stuff, and I loved some of the responses. So you're going to hear some of that in today's training as well. So let's dive in. Here's the deal. What it comes down to at the beginning, we need to acknowledge the big elephant in the room. There's a fear that we carry as farmers of being too pushy and too salesy. That is always there in the room, right? And so if someone doesn't sign up that first time you offer it, right? You put out the early bird offer and they don't sign up. In your mind, you're like, well, they must not have liked the CSA, and so they're not going to renew, and there must be something wrong with my product. And we start to play these mind games, and there's this mindset thing that starts to happen, right? So we sort of take it personally, even though we may not be aware that we're doing so. It zaps our confidence a little bit. Like, why wouldn't they sign up right away? There were a whole bunch of people that did. Why didn't they? Is there something wrong with my product? Did I do something to offend them? And so it immediately creates this strange feeling inside of us, right? And we get a little defensive and a little fearful. So that's just something you need to be aware of. And I want you to look at it full force, because it's there. It's there in all of us. When someone isn't renewing, there's this little piece of us that's wondering, did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? Is my product not good enough? Okay. I feel all of those things too. To this day, even though I have a fairly high retention rate, I still feel that for the people that don't sign up immediately. I'm like, oh, I did something. I didn't do enough. Okay. Now, there are typically kind of three, what I would call levels of response or engagement. So when someone hasn't renewed their membership yet, kind of when I look at what I see other farmers doing and what I do, they kind of fall into three different categories. So the first stage is what I call like, I just made up names, okay, but like the passive, generic, impersonal response, okay? This usually happens early on in the process, right around like the end of the season when we're trying to get people to renew and they haven't that first time. So what this looks like might be a generic just Facebook post in your group where it's like, hey everyone, it's time to renew, okay? And it's not spoken to a specific person. It's just this general call to action like, hey, you should go out and renew, okay? That's sort of like stage one. Another example of this would be a generic email to your whole list. Hey everyone, if you haven't renewed yet, again, not speaking to a very specific person, just when someone reads that email, it will feel like a group mass email. Or you might send out a generic survey like, hey everyone, fill out this survey at the end of the year. And maybe one of your questions is like, if you plan to join again, say yes or no, right? And so that becomes a way that you can go and check and kind of see how many people liked it. But again, it's very generic. It's not targeting a specific person. So this stage one is usually done earlier on in the process. It's really speaking to a wide audience. We're casting a wide net, and we're just hoping to kind of call people generically to action. And that often gets a decent percentage of people to do something, okay? Then there's what I would call like stage two, which is cautiously targeted responses or engagement with people who are on this non-renewed list, okay? This is still not face-to-face. But it is targeting a specific person. So we might look at our list of people who have signed up for the CSA. We compare it to the list of people who were from last year who haven't. And now we begin to go after those individual people via email, perhaps, to try and reach out and say, hey, I noticed. So this can be a very honest email. In fact, Lauren Rudersdorf actually commented here. I want to read what she said because this is an example of kind of stage two. She says, we do a really honest email individually sent to each person who hasn't signed up, who was with us the previous year. A simple, hey, we're almost full. We don't want you to miss out. We loved having you as part of our farm family last year. Listen to her language. This is good stuff. Then we asked them if there was something hard about CSA that we can improve on, or if their life situation may have changed. So she acknowledges that maybe there's a very legitimate reason why you're not doing it. And at a minimum, she says, it helps us know why people leave and make adjustments over time. Best case scenario, we help them understand that we have an option that will work for their lifestyle, and they become a much happier member signing up for the CSA share that better fits their life. So it's a win-win. So in her case, she has different levels of membership that might better fit that particular person. So this kind of reach out, this touch point becomes an opportunity to have a conversation and say, hey, how did it go? And maybe, if this is what's going on in your life, I have a different offer I can put in front of you. Okay, so I love that. So this is stage two, where you're actually writing them a specific note. You're targeting someone. The message is written personally to them. So you might even try to tie in some sentences in that email that bring back a conversation you've had with them, or you're asking about their kids, or hey, I remember that time you told me this, how's that going? So that it just honors the relationship. You can also do this through texting. You can do this through Facebook messaging. You could even write them an actual letter. I know some of the people who commented on the post said that as well. So this is sort of that phase where we're getting a little more aggressive, but it still feels comfortable for us. It's kind of that second, third touch point where we're just touching base and having a more personal conversation. Now, this can get a little bit tedious when you have, like I do, I have 400 members in my CSA, and so there might be 30 people, 40, 50 people that I would have to reach out to like this and write specific emails. And so if you're a larger CSA, that may be a barrier for you. You just may say, I don't have the time for this, or we don't do it as detailed or as well for every single one. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And then finally, I feel like there's a stage three, okay? And this is the sort of aggressive, point blank range kind of touch point. where we just make a phone call, where we actually try to reach them in person and ask them, are you going to come back? And I do this. I actually recommend doing this at some point, and I'll talk about why in just a minute. But this does, for some people, cause us to break out in a sweat. And this may be where you're like, no, Corinne, I'm sorry. That's just, I can't do that. And that's okay. But I am going to make a case for why this could be a really important final step to actually do, and why it might actually honor the relationship that you've built with that person. So you can do this in person as well. Maybe you see the customer at the market in the off season, and you have a chance to ask them that way as well. But this does typically feel more aggressive, and it's uncomfortable. And it's done kind of at the final stages usually of the push, when we're approaching that deadline, when we need to know, okay, we've tried all the other things and now this is the last kind of straw. We're gonna go in for the personal ask, okay? So some other ideas that I wanna share with you though, these are kind of the three phases, and these are kind of the typical things that I think we all think of, like, oh, I'll email them, I'll Facebook message them, I'll text them, I'll call them. But here are some other things to just think about before I get into my sort of insights about all of this. Number one, you could try, kind of like Lauren did, you can try placing another offer in front of them. So maybe it's a coupon or a discount. Well, actually, these are two different things. Let me go with the offer. If you sense that they're not going to take the CSA the same way they did the last year, you can offer a completely different offer. You can say, you know what, I have a different type of CSA product that might fit you better. Maybe it's the free choice one. Or you could say, you know, maybe you just want to come to the farmer's market. So let's not discount the importance of showing them some other ways, other things in your product suite that can help them. We don't just, oh, they didn't like my flagship product and I'll just take them off the list and now they fall into that black hole in your email list where you don't ever, talk to them again. No, let's think about, is there another thing you can put in front of them that would better suit their needs and their lifestyle? Another thing would be a coupon or a discount. Some people feel kind of iffy about this, but if you offer this at stage 2 or 3, it might be appropriate. I want you to think about the cost that it takes to acquire a new customer versus keeping one, okay? And maybe it's worth it to give them a discount, kind of a last call discount, because that will actually save you money in the long run and it will keep that customer. That's sort of your call to decide whether or not this is a customer you want to keep, if you feel like it's a good customer and maybe they just need another impetus, a trigger to get them to sign up again. A freebie PDF or some kind of a resource. So Katie Bishop mentioned this in her original post on this topic, that she had planned on giving some kind of a resource guide to kind of entice them. And this is a very common strategy in the digital marketing space in re-engagement campaigns. So when someone falls off the list, like if they subscribe to a list and they might have bought something from an e-commerce store, but then they don't buy again and they just kind of go dormant. This is a strategy used by digital marketers where they create what they call a re-engagement email campaign that fires after a certain number of days. So if someone hasn't opened an email in 90 to, 150 days, you can kind of set that trigger and then this engagement sequence fires. And then part of that is giving away stuff, like giving away, again, some of your best content and maybe even something that normally costs money, but you offer it for free just to get them back to re-engage with you. Again, it's kind of your call to decide if that's worth it, but that can sometimes work. So this is kind of what she's describing, although I don't think it's quite the same thing, but to offer a really cool PDF, something that's going to make them click on a link or show some sign of, I'm going to, commit with you again. Even the very act of opening an email or clicking on a link in the person's mind psychologically re-engages them and makes it more likely for them to continue to engage with your brand. Okay, so something to think about. And then another idea is just some kind of a late fall survey. So Jonah Tab talked about this and I really liked this idea. He said, I know this won't help you right now, but maybe for next season, in the late fall, I try to get as many members as possible to fill out a detailed survey that will tell me, among other things, exactly why they are on the fence. about signing up again. So it sounds like he sends this survey out to just the people who haven't renewed yet. And it's the questions in there are written in such a way to get at some of this information. This allows me, he says, to categorize people into 3 categories. Number 1, not going to sign up. Number 2, would sign up if a certain issue were addressed. And 3, want to sign up, just haven't gotten around to it. Okay, so it just helps him then reach out to these different groups with different messages for each group. Okay, so that is also a strategy that won't work right now, but I think what I love about Jonah's suggestion is that you start that kind of as one of your earliest touch points in this process, kind of stage 1, right? Where when you sense, oh, they didn't go for the first or second bite when I talk about the offer and they can sign up again, now I'm going to send out this survey and just kind of get a feeler for where they're at, and this will help me kind of tag them a certain way based on what they click, or how they answer. I'll be able to know how to better serve them and move them along in the customer journey. Okay, so those are some other just ideas that I have heard of and that I like. Now here's some just guiding principles to think about as we're walking around this whole topic, okay? Number 1, I want you to remember that these people who haven't renewed yet were once your customers. And so this ain't their first rodeo. When they first signed up, they knew what CSA was all about. They understood that this is about making a commitment to a farmer early on, helping them out, standing behind them. I hope that if you've done your job right of communicating, that they understand that this is about being loyal and helping the local farmer out and being one of these supporters, okay? So this idea of making a commitment up front, they should understand why that's important to you and why you are wanting that early on, okay? So the reason I bring this up is they should somewhat understand if you reach out more than once for the ask, okay? This isn't going to feel super salesy to them like you think it will, because they understand that, this is about getting a commitment and you want to know this is a membership thing. You're trying to figure out, how to get your ducks in a row. They'll be a little understanding about this if you reach out a few times, okay? So I want to try and take that fear off the table, this idea of being salesy and pushy. I feel like that's a legitimate fear. Like when you get to like the 4th touch point, then it can be like, ooh, okay. But initially I think it's really okay because these guys know, okay, they did this with you and they're going to be like, oh, I get it. And they just, for whatever reason, haven't maybe opened the email, or they haven't had the guts to tell you I'm not doing it yet, or maybe they haven't decided, okay? So number 2, I want you to think about this. If you are relying on email as your tool of communicating with them, solely email, you may want to try some other routes because email open rates, as you know, aren't perfect. At my best, I get like 70%. That's really high. It's probably my average open rate right now is like 56%, and that's still considered really good. So, email open rates are not what they used to be many, many years ago, as we know. So you might be sending these things out and they never even open it. Okay, so they haven't technically gotten the message from you yet. And we think, oh, I've sent them 3 emails and they haven't said anything. Well, maybe they just didn't see it or didn't realize what it was. Maybe your headline of your email, your subject line, wasn't clear that this was what it's about. Like I'm usually pretty specific in the headline so that they know what's going to be inside here. It's some kind of curiosity probing question that's going to make them realize, oh, I better open this to, let her know yes or no. Okay. So think about your email headlines, but email just may not be the best way to reach everyone. So try Facebook messaging, try texting if you have their cell phones. For some of these people, try different ways, okay? Number 3, remember that life is busy for people. And I know that your farm is everything to you, and we think that everyone is always thinking about our product. The thing is, they are not. They are not thinking about your farm all the time and how amazing it is. They have other things that are top of mind, especially in January and February when it's freezing outside. We are not thinking about vegetables. So also in the back of some of these people's mind is like, I don't have to make this decision right now. There is no sense of urgency. And so for many people, they just keep putting it off, putting it off. We have procrastinators in our tribe, okay, quite a few of them. So don't take that personally. They're just late deciders. So again, let that sink in because it sort of takes the fear of being salesy off the table for a little bit, okay? People just haven't signed up sometimes because they're procrastinators or they just haven't decided or you haven't given them a reason to decide now. So this is where kind of the action item here, if you want to take this someplace, what you could do is give them a reason to decide now. So if you are in this season right now, maybe it's time to create a special bonus, a last call bonus that disappears and goes away. So Lauren Rudersdorf, again, just posted this really cool idea for a bonus that she did early on, I think with Early Bird, like a free whiskey tasting for the next 20 people, okay? And I think she had 30 people sign up for that, okay? And what if you came up with some cool event like that right now, just to try and entice people in, okay? So you could think of a way to get them to do it now. The bonus has to go away in this last call bonus. You can't offer it forever. And you may even feel like you have to offer the bonus to everyone who's already signed up. That's kind of your call. But that is a way to get people who are on the fence right now to finally do it, okay? You have to give them a reason to do it now. Also, you could just make sure people know I've got a deadline, okay? So there does come a point as a farmer when you're reaching out to these non-renewed people, you've got to know when your personal deadline is. Like, when am I done? Like, when am I sort of, I don't want to say, you never cut ties, but when am I stopping with trying to get them? So figure out what that date is so that you just give yourself some grace too, and make sure they know, look, this is the last time I'm going to ask you this. Promise, right? Final, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show, right? So just decide what your deadline is. And then the other thing I wanted to say here for next season, make your original early bird offering really compelling. I think that's something else that's going to help with this. If you've never learned how to build an offer with bonuses and set a deadline and have an early bird registration period that's like 2 weeks, that really, really helps. I think that's one of the reasons our retention rate soared so high is because we had a great experience for people, but we made an offer that was really compelling and it went away after 2 weeks. It went away. So the best offer that we give is in the last 2 weeks of October, period. And people now know that. And so they're like, okay, I've got to sign up now. So this is another way to kind of deal with that. You got to give them a reason to decide now. So next year, maybe just think about, okay, I'm going to commit to making sure that I have more people renewing because I'm going to make my offer so good in the early bird deadline. And then I also just wanted to bring up, there could be a really good reason why they're not renewing that you shouldn't take personally. It might not be that they didn't like your product, okay? Some people need to take a season off. So for example, you might have people that travel, they're going to be gone for like 5 weeks in the summer. It just doesn't make sense. Or maybe they're having a baby or they just had a baby. I know that's a common reason I see when people have babies. They disappear for a year or two and then they come back because their life is just nuts. You may know what it's like when you have a baby. It's crazy. You're not cooking for people. You're just barely surviving. So they won't renew, but that doesn't mean that they don't want to still be a customer of yours, okay? So that's why this is important to remember. Like, there are many reasons why someone may not renew. Some of them might be that they just didn't click with your product, but there might be some really good legitimate reasons. And just because they're not doing your CSA doesn't mean that they don't want to be a customer. And so we should not let them fall off of our radar. We should not just let them fall into the black hole email list, right? Oh, well, they were once tagged, but now they're not, so now they're hardly going to hear from me. Let's make sure that we have a process in place for, when someone's not renewed, then they should get tagged a certain way so that you can continue to reach out to them with a weekly email, or maybe anytime you have another offer, you occasionally can put that in front of them because they may want to come and buy from you at the farmer's market. They may still want to come to a field to table dinner event at your farm. They just can't engage with CSA for this season. So remember, don't write those people off. All right, and then this final thought, some people didn't have a good experience and that's why they don't renew, okay? There are some of those people. And how can you find out for that subset of people, what I'm going to suggest here is to think about this. How can you find out what it was for them that didn't click? They're going to be naysayers. They're going to be people that just like badmouth it and are like, those are not people that I would need to spend a lot of time listening to. But are there some legitimate things that I could fix that would make it more likely for them or people like them in the future to stay? So here's just a thought experiment for you. If you only had 10 customers, think back to your first year when you only had 10 to 30 customers. And let's just say you came to the end of that year and, I don't know, 10 of them, 5 to 10 of them weren't renewing. What would you do? Like if they hadn't signed up again, wouldn't you reach out to them and talk to them? I mean, I would feel really comfortable doing that. And as I thought through that, I was like, why? Why would I feel more comfortable doing that with, 10, 12, 15 people as opposed to 400 people? And I think that's a really good thought experiment to kind of go through in your head, because when we're smaller, we have number one, we have the bandwidth to really develop stronger relationships with those customers, right? So we really know them and we talk longer with them at pickup, and there's just a different relationship. So it feels normal to just call. In fact, it feels weird if we don't call when they don't renew. And they will be completely fine if you call and ask, because there is that relationship there. So just something to think about, like if you're a bigger CSA and you're feeling reluctant and you're worried about being salesy, or I don't want to call these people, why is that? And why is it that we would feel comfortable doing that with a smaller CSA when there's more at stake, right? Like I need those 10 customers. And why is it that we don't want to do it when they're so large? So maybe part of it is that you don't have the same close relationship with all of them. And then that's just something to think about for next year. What can you do in your process of your business so that you can establish a relationship with them that makes it possible to have that conversation if you need to have it later on? So things to think about as you reach out to your customers. This is kind of the final section of the training today. Number one, the history of the relationship. So I just sort of hinted at this. How long have they been a member? Okay, that's really going to be a question you need to ask yourself. If it's just somebody who's been there for 1 year versus a 5-year member or a 3-year member, you're going to have maybe a different inclination to really reach out and call someone, right? Do that final stage 3. You might be more inclined to do that with someone who's been with you for a long time. I have a customer by the name of Tiffany who's been with us for a very long time. She's always been a huge supporter. Like she actually came and helped pass out boxes with us for a while at the pickup sites. Just came out to many farm events. And when I saw that she hadn't renewed, I was actually really stunned, and I kept waiting for it, and she still hasn't. And I did reach out to her and just, have asked her, hey, I haven't heard back from her yet, but I reached out to her via phone. And I'm like, hey, I'd love to know if you're planning on renewing. And I sort of had that whole spiel and the wording of it, which I'll go through in a minute. So that felt really normal and comfortable because she's been with us for a long time. And I'm actually kind of worried, like, why isn't she, what happened? Or is she okay? And so I could kind of come at it from that piece, from that side of it, from the strength of a relationship. Another thing here to think about is, were they giving you weird vibes? So as you look back at this person, did you pick up on weird vibes all through the season? Because I can read it. Usually I can tell, like by week 8 or 9, if this person is enjoying it or not, just by their body language. And so if you kind of sense that already, I feel like, maybe you don't need to do stage 3 with some of those people, because you already sense that it wasn't clicking for them. So that's something I think about. And then I also ask this question: can I even remember what they look like? Okay. If you can't even picture what they look like in your head, then that tells you that you don't have a relationship with them. And then it is going to feel a little strange reaching out to them. And it may not feel or be as appropriate to do stage 3 with them, right? This would also be kind of a red flag for me. And let me tell you, I have some people at my own pickup site in Elmore that I cannot picture what they look like, okay? So this would be a little bit of a red flag if you cannot picture them, or someone, maybe I only have like 2 sites that I'm in charge of, so I don't expect myself to remember what people at Kurt's site look like, I count on him to know those people and have a relationship. But I'm the person who should have a relationship with the people from my sites. And if I can't picture them, that's a red flag for me. And it says, okay, what do I need to do next year differently to make sure that I'm connecting with everyone? Like, I need to know their names. I do take photographs of them, but clearly this year I did not do a good job of really learning everyone's name. So something to think about. If you take the time to connect, this is going to be a lot easier to have these conversations if you need to have them. Okay, I also think that reaching out to people with whom you have kind of a history of a relationship honors that relationship. It makes them feel noticed. So this kind of reminds me of a time a few years ago. I'm going to talk church language here for a second. So we were a member of our local church in Elmore, and we'd been going there for like 6-7 years. I'd been really active. I was on lots of committees. I was a volunteer. And we were one of the few families that had little kids. Okay, so this was kind of a graying church, and we were really trying to bring some life to it and participate. Well, ultimately, we just kept butting heads. It just wasn't working for us, and we tried for a good 7 years, and we finally made this really hard decision, my husband and I, to go and plant ourselves somewhere else in a different congregation. And that was a very gut-wrenching decision, but we did go and actually schedule an appointment with the pastor and tell him, hey, we're not coming back. We're not renewing, okay? And so we left. Now remember, we've been at this congregation in this community for like 7 years, okay? Fairly active. We weren't just like sitting in the pew not doing anything. I had one person from that congregation reach out to me by telephone maybe like 4 months after we hadn't been there and ask me, hey, I haven't seen you. Where have you been? Okay. I got to tell you, I noticed that no one called me. So I bring this up because in community supported agriculture, we're a community, right? That's what we say, that we care about people. We're trying to build relationships. So if you have built a relationship with a customer, okay, this is like a 4 or 5 year customer, and you don't reach out to them, I just want you to think about what that might feel like. They might notice, and it might color their exit from your business. So if someone, this is where I just get a little passionate, why I feel like it is important to try and call people, even if all it is a thank you for supporting us, appreciate that you were with us last year, goodbye kind of call. That kind of puts a bookend on that phase of your customer relationship, and you can invite them to be a customer in a different way, but it honors the relationship. And I think that if it's done well, it actually adds value to you. If you don't do anything at all, worst case scenario, nothing happens. Worst case is like you damage the relationship, but you could also it could also just kind of just stay where it's at. But I don't think that calling someone hurts the relationship, I guess is what I'm trying to say. At the very least, it just says, hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. I want you to know, even if you don't come back, we really are grateful that you were a part of our story. And that ends things really well. I had a business mentor tell me once that saying goodbye to a customer is an important part of the process, that you should always try to end and do that goodbye really well, because they may come back, and how you manage that goodbye says a lot about your brand, about your character, and about your relationship. So, okay, that's sort of one thing. I want to get into the wording now. So how would you actually word this email or this conversation? There were several suggestions in the post that Katie had in our group. If you haven't gone and looked at it, I encourage you to do so. Here were some of the things that came out of that. I loved them. So Eliza Kaler said, could you say something like, I haven't seen your name on our sign-up sheet, and since you've been with us for a few years, I just wanted to reach out and ask you on a personal basis if everything's all right with you. I've been holding a spot for you, but I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be salesy, because that's not my style, but I just want to let you know that we still have your share if you want it. All right. So what I love about this phrasing, you can kind of put it in your own words, but there are a lot of really good elements in this. And this can, Sorry about that, guys. I just got a phone call. That was awkward. Okay. This can be done as an email or it can be done on the phone, okay? So what Eliza did really well here is that she speaks to the, are you all right? So she kind of assumes that, hey, this is strange, like I would expect you to sign up. I just want to make sure you're okay, okay? And that's a really great place to start from. It's like, I'm worried about you. It honors that relationship. But I also love how she names the fear. That just puts the elephant right in the room. We're all looking at it like, hey, it's not my style. I don't want to be pushy or salesy. So it sort of just lets the person know like, oh, like this is hard for me to say. I just want to say that, but I still I'm worried about you and I want to know, we would love to have you back. If not, that's okay too. All right. So it's okay to check in on them and ask about them, right? In fact, they may even expect it. As I said, if you've known them for a while and you don't reach out to them, it's going to be a little weird. And then one day when you see them out in public and you haven't talked to them for a year, now it's going to feel really awkward. So I loved that was one really great way of wording things. Margot Hanson-Pierre wrote, if you have their number, you can shoot them a text too, like, hey, do you have any questions about signing up this year? The spots to support our farm are filling up. I want to make sure I hold one for you. Okay, so wording it like, hey, if you have any questions, that gives them a way to respond if necessary, like, no, I don't have any questions, I'm not gonna do it again. It just takes some of that weirdness out, okay? So that's sort of some coaching on how you would word it. The timing of the touch points, I wanna touch on that before I finish, and the frequency. So I think it's about 3 to 5 times that you might have a touch point, depending on the relationship with someone. And when do you begin this process? So I think the earlier you begin, the better. So obviously early bird renewal is the very first time that, I let people know we can renew. And I really encourage you to create an early bird renewal period. And I encourage it to be a short period where you have a really good offer, a best offer, the best offer you'll have all season. And that it's like a 2 or 3 week period. 2 weeks, I think, is even better. And then you can still keep the store open. They can still sign up after that, but the offer is different. And it's not as good an offer. The price changes or the bonus goes away or something, okay? So give them a reason to sign up earlier. That's kind of step one. But then I think the next sort of touch point potential could be that end of year survey. In December, I usually send out some kind of an email because to me, it's sort of my excuse is like, hey, I'm relying on this income starting in June. I'm trying to get as many commitments now so I know where we stand as possible. People respond to that because they understand, right, when they sign up for a CSA that this is kind of what it's all about. And that might be an impetus to help them give you the yes or the no. So it feels appropriate to do it, in December one time. January and February, I don't do a lot. I really kind of go silent. Well, I don't want to say I go silent. I have my weekly email to my list or bi-weekly email. So they're getting touch points from me that way, but I'm not actually pushing the CSA sale. And I do that just because I feel like nobody's really thinking about it in January and February. And for people who really want to, they'll do it, but I'm just not going to choose to be pushy then. I'm going to choose to give value in those 2 months. Then in March, I begin to be more cautiously targeting people. Well, I'll reach out to some of those people who haven't renewed and get a little more aggressive that way through email or through texting. And now in April, end of March, early April, when my spots are filling up, like I've got 21 spots right now, I'm actually reaching out to those people and getting a little more aggressive on the telephone because, especially the ones who've been with me a long time, because I'm like, hey, I don't want you to lose your spot. And maybe you didn't realize that you forgot to sign up, or I don't know what's going on. Is everything okay? Those kinds of conversations are starting to happen. Okay? I'm coming to the end. Final comments. Let's wrap it up. It costs 5 times as much to acquire a new customer as it does to keep one. And so one of the things I want us to think about is, what if this coming year we commit to trying to figure out, what if we really started focusing on the customers that we have and really providing them with excellent service above and beyond value so that we hit that excite phase in the customer value journey. If we can do that really well, this disconnect that we're struggling with right now doesn't happen as much. So that's something to think about. This is like a proactive strategy that I think we need to have in the room. But also, maybe it's time to say goodbye to some of these customers. I don't think it's a realistic goal to have 100% retention. You are going to lose customers, and you should. Not everybody's going to be a good fit for your product, and please be okay with that. Be willing to repel, be willing to say, you know, this isn't the ideal product for you. You are not the ideal customer for me. Here's a better thing I could put in front of you that you might like better to make you happy, okay? So it's okay if we lose some people, and that might be a really good thing for you as well as for your customer. Always say thank you though. Always say thank you when you say goodbye to that element of your relationship. And finally, I've said it before, a non-renewing CSA customer can still be a customer, just a different kind of customer. So whatever you do, don't burn the bridge, don't burn the boats, okay? Continue to build that relationship and offer them another way to buy from you. You can still increase your lifetime customer value just in a different way. There are seasons. So a couple of examples here. I have a woman who was one of my founding members, Suzanne Hoffman. She left the CSA last year, but she has continued to show up at the farmers market and buy from us. She's been a great supporter of our farm, and she writes me notes and thank you notes and emails all the time. The Sauble family, they were also founding members. They stopped coming about 4 or 5 years ago. This year they signed up again for our CSA out of nowhere, and I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so people can come back around. So let's just remember, just because someone non-renews or doesn't come back doesn't mean they can't still be a customer. Don't let them fall into the email black hole. Please find a way to recycle them and use them and add value to them in a different way in your business, because they probably still want to support you. They just can't do it maybe in the CSA way, and that's okay. All right, your call to action this week. I want you to think about all of this. Some of it's going to be hard for you, but I want you to just challenge yourself. Can you reach out to 5 people who haven't renewed, maybe even on the telephone if you're at that stage yet? If you haven't done phase 1 or phase 2, can you reach out to them and just check in and show that you care about the relationship and say goodbye if you have to, and honor them and thank them? It'll be hard the first 2, but after that, it gets easier. Trust me. If you liked this video and you're watching it later on YouTube, I want you to subscribe and hit the bell so you can get notified of future trainings. And I also just want to mention that I have a podcast coming. I actually recorded my first episode, and I'm going to do a few more so that I can upload like 3 at once. It is launching on May 1st. Really excited about it. So I just want you guys to know about that, and I'll be talking more about it as the deadline gets a little closer. But my goal is just to teach stuff like I do here in a weekly podcast all about marketing to help farmers get better at marketing. So I hope you are excited about that as much as I am. Okay, that's it. You guys have a great week. I'll catch you next time for this Marketing Minute update. Take care, guys. Bye.